It's Sunday, January 31st. I'm Ariel O'Sullivan, and this is IBA News broadcasting from Jerusalem. We open with a terrorist shooting in Judea and Samaria in which 3 Israelis were injured, one seriously, at an IDF roadblock near Beit El. Soldiers shot and killed the terrorist, who was identified as Palestinian policeman Amjad Jasser Abu Omar from the village of Jemain, southwest of Nablus. He worked for the Palestinian Authority's General Prosecutor's Office. IDF and Magen David Adom medics treated the wounded at the site before transferring them to the capital's Hadassah, Mount Scopus, and Sharet Tzedek hospitals. The roadblock north of Ramallah is known as the VIP checkpoint used by senior Palestinian officials and UN personnel. It is located near the civil administration building and military bases. Abu Omar arrived in a car at the checkpoint and opened fire at soldiers before he was shot dead. He reportedly wrote on his Facebook this morning that there was nothing worth living for under Israeli occupation, and posted a photo en route to the checkpoint saying, "With Allah's help, we will be victorious." This afternoon, IDF soldiers manning a roadblock near Beit Horon on Highway 443 thwarted an attempt by a Palestinian to run them over. Soldiers shot and critically injured the Arab. There were no Israeli casualties. Terror also struck in Jerusalem at a 17-year-old Jewish boy who recently immigrated to Israel from the U.S. was stabbed in the back outside the old city's Damascus gate early yesterday evening. The victim was lightly injured and treated at the Hadassah Mount Scopus hospital in the capital. One of the 2 Palestinian youths suspected of carrying out the attack turned himself in to police early this morning. Police officials said it appeared he realized that they were onto him after surveillance footage showing the attackers was released. 3 other Palestinian suspects have also been arrested. The victim, who arrived recently into the country to begin voluntary army service, told police that dozens of Palestinian youth surrounded him and his friend as they returned from the Western Wall. He said they drew knives and stabbed him and that his friend escaped and ran to alert security forces. He said the incident encourages him even more to go ahead with his scheduled military service, and he hopes to be able to join an elite combat unit. While senior government officials have outright rejected the idea, Jerusalem is waiting for a formal proposal from France before responding to a new initiative laid out by its Foreign Minister Laurent Fabius on Friday. The French diplomat is trying to convene an international peace summit between Israel and the Palestinians in the upcoming weeks. However, Fabius threatened that if peace talks fail to yield results, then Paris will officially recognize a Palestinian state. At the weekly cabinet meeting this morning, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu called the French initiative a gesture to the Palestinians, telling them not to compromise. Minister of Energy Yuval Steinitz declared Jerusalem will not negotiate under ultimatums or threats. Israeli officials expressed concern that the French move could create a domino effect, causing other European nations to follow suit. A U.S. administration official was also quoted as saying negotiations should be conducted directly by the 2 parties to resolve final status issues. Needless to say, the Palestinians welcome the move.
We welcome the statements of Mr. Fabius, the Foreign Minister of France. We believe this is timely. We believe our region is going through one of the most critical juncture in its history. We believe that the war against terror must succeed, must prevail, but we cannot ensure this without a balance. That is to end the Israeli occupation and establish a Palestinian state on the 1967 lines with East Jerusalem as its capital. And I think the call of Mr. Fabius yesterday is a realization that this Israeli government is a government for settlers, by settlers, and to the settlers. They are doing nothing but to torpedo and undermine the 2-state solution.
Well, joining me now from our Tel Aviv studio to discuss the latest French ultimatum is Reserve Colonel Miri Eisen, a former advisor to the Prime Minister and government spokeswoman. Miri?
Good afternoon, Aria.
Good afternoon. Well, Israel has downplayed this proposal, and the Palestinians obviously welcomed it. Would you say this is a sort of a lose-lose situation for Israel? The Palestinians get what they want anyway.
Well, at the end of the day, the Palestinians have not gotten what they want, Aria, and every once in a while I feel like we need to remind ourselves that it's 2016 and we are growing stronger, and we have just had a wonderful report from the OECD, and the Israeli economy grows, and at the end, for the Palestinians, they haven't resolved it. So with all of their talking about imposing it upon us, they have not managed to do so, and I don't think that they'll manage to do so through this French initiative either. There is a lot of rhetoric, and I would agree with you that when it comes to rhetoric, I feel that we lose often, and that we're placed in situations where we're the ones that are the refuseniks, and I don't like that situation. I don't like being the ones that are constantly saying no.
Well, as a former spokeswoman, how do you think Israel should react to this?
Well, one of the things that I like and the way that we can react is let's be positive as opposed to negative in the sense, and I heard the Prime Minister in the full statement, I think that one of the things that we do is we only take portions of it. And first of all, we welcome the idea of arriving at a resolution with the Palestinians, and we think that we should do so face to face, and we think that it's something that should be continued to do. It's interesting that the Americans respond in this way today, and everybody's poo-pooing the way the Americans said that. Why not? We do respond. We are interested. This isn't about the international community imposing it upon Israel. It's about Israel and the Palestinians jointly sitting down together. They've refused to do so for many years. But by our standing up and immediately saying no, what everybody hears is only our refusal and not that context of the Palestinians not willing to come to the table, not willing to compromise. And I really do think that it's a question of the way that we would frame it, and we could, I think, do better.
Well, you know, there's a threat that if the peace talks aren't progressing, that the French will declare recognition for Palestine. What are the ramifications of that?
Well, they wouldn't be the first. And if somebody wants to go and bring up and go online now and bring up, there are 134 countries that already recognize Palestine as a country. That isn't something that I wake up today and say in 2016 it's any different. In 2012, the United Nations recognized Palestine as a type of country. So when we're talking, when we already have so many countries in the world that do so, not that I would be happy, but it's another one. Other European countries have spoken about it. Northern Scandinavian countries have gone that way. There's a big difference here, and that's the difference between parliaments, between what I call the popular vote, and between governments, between the ones who are making policy. Because when we talk policy, I think that governments very much understand, even if they don't agree, they understand Israel's position. They understand the fact that there are two sides to the issues here, and that it's not just about imposing it upon Israel. When you have a rhetoric that the people in France know, that the state of France have recognized Palestine, you're already at a stage where I can just see the implications on tourism to Israel, on day-to-day life to Israel. From a country like France, that's a very big statement. Hasn't happened in, let's say, the UK or in Germany and other large countries, which are very important in the way that they look at Israel. It already has started happening, for example, in Sweden, where the parliaments have already recognized Palestine as a country.
Well, there's those who are saying that the French are just trying to spark some kind of dialogue that's long overdue, and perhaps it's better than nothing at all. Maybe they're right. Maybe we need a good kick to get us back to the peace table.
Hey, on that one, you're going to have a lot of differing opinions there, Aryeh. I want us to get back to the table. I want us to jointly get back to the table. It takes two to tango. And I really think that Israel is not the one right now that's saying no to going back to the table. The question is about the conditions when you come back to that table. And I'm going to make a statement here in a very strong kind of security kind of mode. If you go back to the table, Aryeh, and you sit down and negotiate, and you fail again, are we all ready to fail again? So it isn't just a question of let's all run back and get to that table. We want to get to a table and succeed. And what I worry about is with these international ideas that they are going to impose something and impose at the end Israel to go back to the table and it will fail again. I think that the price of an additional failure could be immensely higher than the one that we're paying right now.
We talk about a price, but there are those who say that the current security situation with the knifing attacks and the attacks like that is sort of a result of the frustration and the stalemate in negotiations.
Well, there are no negotiations, and there's no question that things need to be done. I think that there are additional acts that could be done. There are voices within Israel, both within the government and certainly in the opposition at the moment, about steps that could be done that aren't about negotiating with somebody who's not willing to negotiate without preconditions. At the end of the day, we do need to try and kind of separate as much as we can between the rhetoric and the words of the Palestinian Authority, of the Palestinian president, of the Palestinian negotiator like Saeb Erekat that we saw before, that their rhetoric can be so against us in so many ways, and at the end between the fact that there are millions of people there who need a resolution, and it's a slippery slope, and we need to try to both work with them and at the same time be clear that we have conditions, that we have stands, that we're not willing to just give back. I'd like to say another word about the issue of the knifings, the stabbings, the deaths of what's been going on. And I'm going to say something oh so unpopular. It's terrible. I live here. My husband, my 3 kids. It's not easy times. But you know what, Aryeh? We both lived through 2000 to 2005, and we stood strong, and we came out stronger. The Palestinians did not, and I think that we should continue to stand strong and do as we know how. We have our own capabilities. We are strong. Sadly, there is no way to eradicate terrorism completely. And in this sense, what we have to do is to have a stiff upper lip, if I may, in a very British sort of way.
Mary Eisen, one final question. We don't have much time left, but you're constantly going around the world and trying to present Israel's positions. What's the response you hear the most?
I think that what I hear the most is the gap in perceptions. I'll go again with the British, with the mind the gap. There is a growing gap between the way that we, REA, view ourselves and the way the world views us. And I think that that gap is what really worries me. I think that that gap can be bridged in rhetoric. I think that that enormous gap, when we wake up and we're looked upon from the outside as this horrific place, and we wake up and look around and we think we're not like that at all, that is the thing that worries me the most in these very diverse audiences that I meet worldwide.
Well, Reserve Colonel Mary Eisen, thanks so much for joining the IBA today.
A pleasure.
Several days after he drew fire here at home for stating that the current wave of Palestinian violence could be rooted in frustration, United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon expressed deep concern over Hamas's pledge to continue building tunnels from Gaza into Israel and to develop its rockets fired at the Jewish state. In a written statement, Ban said such plans by the terror group endanger Israeli and Palestinian efforts to reach a solution in the area, as well as create a serious disservice to the international community's humanitarian and development efforts to rebuild the coastal enclave, which has been devastated in 3 rounds of fighting between Israel and Hamas over the past 8 years. Ban's remarks came one day after Hamas senior official Ismail Haniyeh said that Gazans, who he calls heroes, are feverishly digging tunnels designed to carry out attacks against Israel. Contrary to reports that the U.S. administration has hardened its stance towards Israeli settlement policy, Washington has issued a reminder that products imported from Judea and Samaria should not be labeled "Made in Israel." The U.S. State Department stressed the decision to reissue the policy came after complaints were received that some West Bank products had been mislabeled, and claimed that there was nothing new in the move.
It was U.S. Customs and Border Protection who reissued guidance on their marking requirements. This guidance was simply a restatement of previous requirements that the Customs and Border Protection has made clear that it in no way supersedes prior rulings or regulations, nor does it impose additional requirements with respect to merchandise imported from the West Bank, Gaza Strip, or Israel. So there's nothing new. This is simply a reissuance of guidance. So why did they do this? Yeah, sure. I'm guessing. Our understanding is that this is simply because of there were allegations of mislabeling, but I'd have to refer you to the CPB for more information on that.
Israel has downplayed an investigative report stating American and British intelligence secretly tapped into live video feeds from Israeli drones and fighter jets, allowing them to keep tabs on the drone technology Israel exports around the world and monitor a possible strike against Iran. A report in the Intercept journal said the British government worked with the National Security Agency from Cyprus and systematically monitored Israeli drones. Responding to the reports, Israeli security officials insisted that the country's defense operations were not harmed, adding, "It goes without saying that foreign intelligence elements in the Middle East detect our operations, just like we detect the operations of other states in the region." Calling it a fair and creative solution, Prime Minister Netanyahu today in the cabinet reviewed a historic compromise that would allow women and non-Orthodox Jewish groups to worship at the Western Wall, much to the chagrin of the Orthodox. Under the compromise, a section of the Western Wall a bit south of the Wailing Wall Plaza is being expanded for Jewish prayer by Reform and Conservative worshippers as well as women of the Wall. Ultra-Orthodox ministers opposed the compromise, but it was approved by a majority vote. The compromise gives Orthodox Jewry total control of the practices at the Western Wall Plaza. The separate but equal compromise still leaves unclear when the new mixed-gender plaza, which will fit about 1,000 people, will be built. The Supreme Court today accepted the state's appeal calling to impose harsher jail sentences on brothers Shlomo and Nachman Twito, accused of carrying out the arson attack on Jerusalem's hand-in-hand bilingual school in November 2014. Today's ruling overturned a previous one by the Jerusalem's district court, adding 8 months to each of the brothers who were originally sentenced to 24 and 30 months in prison. Judges ruled that the brothers' actions sent a threatening message and had the potential of not only heightening tensions, but also spurring hate crimes. Demonstrations against the controversial gas deal were renewed last night across the country. The main event took place in Tel Aviv, where hundreds took to the streets to protest the government's intention to bypass antitrust regulations in order to approve the deal with the U.S. energy giant Noble Energy. Protesters called by the public to oppose the deal, which will be brought before the Supreme Court for debate this Wednesday. Demonstrators carried signs in Hebrew demanding transparency and saying no more gas robbery, and we will not remain silent in the face of tycoons. It's Sunday, and as the week kicks off to a new start, here are 5 good things that may put a smile on your face, or at least make you feel a little proud. Local university students will be able to study English online for free, dramatically reducing the time and money students invest to master the language. The online courses will be offered by the Open University in accordance with the level of English required by the academic institution. 2-3-1 blast off. The 11th annual Ilan Ramon Conference kicks off in Tel Aviv this week. Some of the world's and out of this world's leading space agencies delegations will touch down in Israel to share their insights. Israeli biotechnology company Kadima STEM has received American patent allowance for its innovative technology to treat diabetes. Israel is on the international figure skating map. Representing the land of milk and honey, Alexei Bochenko won Israel's first ever medal in the European Championship in Slovakia. He came in second place, earning a silver medal. And a little less pain at the pump. Gas prices go down by 5 agarot per liter at midnight. The price of 95 octane will stand at 5.73 shekels per liter at the self-service line. Taking a look at the local finance, and with no currency trading on Sundays, the shekel remains the same, while share prices on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange started off the trading week in the plus column. Here's a look at the mid-afternoon numbers. Looking at the weather, and the forecast is calling for pretty much the same conditions as today, with partly cloudy skies and no change in temperatures. Here's a look at the expected highs and lows at home and abroad for the next 24 hours. That's our broadcast of IBA News for today. Hope you'll join us again tomorrow when Laura Cornfield will be here to bring you the latest breaking news from Israel. I'm Ariel O'Sullivan, wishing you a good evening. Shalom from Jerusalem, and we leave you with images of the south of the country covered in a blanket of red, blooming kalaniyot.